Hello and welcome to the Wednesday, March 12th edition of the SIG Contributor Experience meeting, which happens on a biweekly basis every other week, not the other meaning of biweekly. A reminder that we do operate under a code of conduct, which essentially says to be respectful of your fellow speakers and attendees and generally be excellent to each other. At the beginning of the meeting here, we like to offer an opportunity for anyone on the call to introduce themselves. This is totally optional. I will go first. I'm Caslin Fields. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Special Interest Group for Contributor Experience. The purpose of this group is to manage all sorts of things related to how contributors do their work in open source Kubernetes. This meeting is a sync for the entire SIG, so we will go over our various subprojects and see if we have any updates on them. And my pronouns are she, her. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves? Totally optional.
Hey y'all, I'm Chris Short. I'm one of the co-leads of contributor communications along with Caslin. And while I haven't been a part of the project forever, I've been here a very long time. So if you need help with anything, feel free to ask.
Welcome, welcome. Anyone else? Totally optional.
I guess I'll go. I'm Ray Lahano, pronouns he, him. I occasionally joined this SIG ContribEx meetings. There is something on the agenda I want to talk about in terms of the events, but I'm also a SIG Docs co-chair and a SIG security subproject lead.
Welcome. Great to have you. Anyone else? Totally optional. All right, then. We'll move right along. One more housekeeping item before we dive into our agenda. We like to have a note taker for this meeting, which is a volunteer thing. So if anyone would like to volunteer to be note taker today, we would welcome that. The role of the note taker is to follow along with the discussion and to take notes on it as best you can. Feel free to ask questions so that you can take clearer notes. The purpose of the notes is to make sure that anyone who didn't attend the meeting who wants to catch up using notes can do so. So would anyone like to be our note taker today?
I can take this, Cassie.
Awesome. Thank you. I will put you in the doc as our note taker. Thank you for volunteering. And I can kind of type. Alrighty. So I went over the code of conduct. We did the intros. I think we are good on housekeeping items. So let's dive into our agenda. The first subproject on our list is the event subproject, which of course has the maintainer summit for KubeCon EU going on right now. I see that we have one item on there, and Ray, I believe that's for you.
Yeah, so just we have the SIG meet and greet lunch and learn on Thursday, April 3rd, at 12:15 p.m. British summertime to 2:15 p.m. At the project pavilion at the solution showcase. I linked the SCED link on the agenda. And if you are going to attend and you want to, and if you are representing a SIG committee or working group, please make a comment on the issue under K Community, issue number 8353. It's also linked on the agenda.
Wonderful. Glad to see the meet and greet continuing at KubeCon EU. Any questions about the meet and greet at KubeCon EU?
I need to put it in my calendar.
Yeah, and I should also note that this is an event for anyone that wants to meet contributors. If you're new to contributing, if you're interested in any part of the project, you're more than welcome to please come and attend.
Yes.
Please do. Before we move on from that one, I do have one question, which is very important. British summertime? Is that really?
Yeah, it's our
Because
day.
that's so descriptive.
Yes.
It's not British Standard Time, which is how the US uses the S in blank ST. It's summertime?
That makes more sense than daylight savings.
Please, America.
We got to get our shit together
That's so much clearer.
here.
Is it daylight savings time now? I don't know.
Yes.
If it is,
technically
what
it
does
is.
that mean? I don't know.
Supposedly there's more daylight now.
Is that the up an hour or the down an hour? And how does that relate to the doesn't tell me anything. Anyway, thank you very much
Exactly.
for that.
Yeah, my favorite part of the story is that the term daylight savings actually comes from Benjamin Franklin,
Yes.
Of
who
course it does.
proposed the idea as a joke.
Oh.
That's disconcerting.
Hmm.
Yeah, which just once again proves the lesson is that you should never propose anything as a joke
No.
during committee meetings, because you never know.
Take that to heart, Kubernetes contributors.
Right.
We have enough time zone problems as it is. Alrighty. Any other questions, comments, discussion about events, maintainer summit, meet and greet, those kinds of things? There was one thing that came up in a meeting that I was in earlier this week, which is wondering when the maintainer summits will be for future KubeCon. So I'm also curious about that. We'll keep an eye on it. I'll mention that in case anyone else is interested in that topic and wants to keep an eye on it with me. Cool. So with that, I think I'll move on to our next sub-project, which is mentoring. It's been a while since I've gotten to check in on the mentoring group. It's been a while since I've gotten to be at the beginning of these meetings. Any updates from mentoring? I actually have a request for the mentoring sub-project,
I
but
was gonna say, we're just closing, I think today or tomorrow, the etcd mentoring cohort.
Mm.
And then I'll have news on how many mentees we have, etc.
Nice.
I meant I meant to post in SIG ContribEx, I guess, about is there a mentoring channel in Slack sub-project? Just part of
Nope.
SIG ContribEx, right? Okay, yeah.
But this is part of SIG ContribEx. We don't have any meetings or anything because it would be
There's,
me
like,
and
one person.
Sylvester meeting when he's available, which is not that often. So
I was wondering how active Sylvester's been able to be lately. I haven't seen much.
no. I mean, since
Yeah.
the beginning of the year, he really hasn't been available because of day job, right?
Yeah, that happens.
Yep.
Well, I do have a request for the mentoring sub-project. Luckily, I plan to kind of run it on my own, but I want it to be known as part of the mentoring sub-project, which is there's been a request within the comms group to run a mentoring cohort for social media, which we desperately need to do. So we're planning to start up biweekly meetings, which I still haven't gotten on the schedule. I really need to do that this week.
Mm-hmm.
So every other week meetings of a smaller, a mentoring cohort. I don't know that it'll be smaller than the regular comms meeting to train folks up on how social media works and get more leads going in our social media.
Yeah.
So any docs that you have on running mentoring cohorts, if you have a moment to throw them my way, I would appreciate them. If I can remember long enough, I will find them, but that is not super likely. I will write it on my to-do list.
Yeah. We actually do have a set of docs for this.
Thought you probably did.
Yeah, I thought you did too.
In the absence of humans, docs are sometimes the next best thing.
Ain't that the truth?
I could make an AI joke here, but I will refrain.
Don't. Please don't.
You
know what?
Would be
That's
a
been
joke.
the best part of my new job is AI is a side note.
Yeah, that's good. We just had this discussion about not bringing up things as a joke. So,
Mhm.
moving on. Any other questions, comments, discussion around mentoring? Any external mentoring program stuff going on right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean the usual cycle, which is I will soon be closing on Google Summer Code, and and I think there's a couple of SIGs participating, and we're currently in the middle of one of the LFX cycles.
I guess summer is coming.
Yeah. Be great if spring
Yep.
got here.
Yep. And we have neither a budget nor a facilitator for outreachy, so that's not happening right now.
For external mentoring program, yeah, summer of code stuff and outreachy. You said soon, not happening.
Not happening.
Okay.
As in, we would need somebody to volunteer to be outreachy project admin internally, particularly to do recruitment of mentees, since outreachy has requirements that are different from the other programs, and outreachy has to be funded because Google Summer Code is funded by Google and LFX is funded by the LF for us anyway. But outreachy needs a source of funding if we're going to have Kubernetes outreachy stints.
So that requires
Outreachy,
greater effort.
yeah. Outreach is under the SFC, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, and in the past when we've done it, individual corporate sponsors have actually put up the money.
Mhm.
And sometimes the LF has matched that, said, hey, like I remember one turn, where one corporate sponsor sponsored one and the LF matched by sponsoring the second one. So, but none of that is happening right now because it really does need somebody who is devoting their fairly part-time volunteer time to coordinating all of that.
Yeah, that's a big lift.
And we've had people who are interested periodically, but I think once they found out what work was involved, they put it off.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
The need to recruit more folks for mentoring continues.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments, discussion about mentoring? Alrighty, we will move on to contributor comms. And there was a request for us that I wanted to go ahead and bring up. Josh, you were there for that. It was a request for blogs about the annual reports.
Yeah, so the idea is that once we get the annual report stuff synthesized together, we'd like to actually do 2 blog posts. One focusing on what various SIGs and working groups are doing or have done over the last year. And then a second one talking about the risks, which from the annual reports is mainly in the form of sub-projects that are no longer staffed. Part of the idea behind this is to recruit contributors, because we always have people wandering around saying, hey, I want to contribute to Kubernetes, but I'm not sure what to do. And there are plenty of things to do. Both, either attracting them to existing activity or people who want to pitch in and rescue a sub-project that's not thriving.
Mentoring?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. And this is something to go to comms on Friday, which is we could use writers for both of those posts. I can actually edit if we the difficulty there is that the writer needs to be somebody who is broadly familiar with the all of the SIGs, etc., right? Because if you're not, you don't necessarily understand the contents of the annual reports. So and it could be somebody who's not great at writing prose. I can edit and get the text into shape. But it does need to be somebody with project knowledge and not somebody who's maybe brand new to Kubernetes.
Preference for someone with some familiarity with SIGs in reports. So we will bring that up on Friday to see if we can find more or a couple of folks to own writing those. Anything else from comms?
We had a discussion with SIGDoc's blog about helping them out, and it seems like reducing the volume of stuff we comms puts on top of them might be the best first thing.
We're debating it in the comms channel.
Yeah.
So to recap for anyone who wasn't there, we had a discussion 2 weeks ago about how we have 2 blogs. We have one on the contributor site and one on Kubernetes.io. And the Kubernetes.io one has a high bar. It's run by SIGDoc's blogs. It has more structure around it, but also is in desperate need of more help from reviewers and folks to help out with that blog. And the contributor site blog is kind of a best effort and ends up essentially having the same people review it a lot of the time. And the request that we've gotten from Doc's blogs is to use the Kubernetes.io site as kind of our primary if we're going to post on both, because they have more structure in place and need us to work within that. And so the contributor site can kind of follow along with that process. This ends up being a big bottleneck for us, which is why we've had a bunch of discussion about it. So we've been discussing ways that we can help improve this situation. Ideally, we would love to have more folks helping with blog or blogs. One thing we've discussed is that there's not really enough folks doing blog work to run 2 blogs. So the question is, do we merge the blogs? The proposal that we're talking about in comms is, do we just post our regular spotlight blogs on the contributor site and not on Kubernetes.io in order to reduce the load on the heavier lift blogging team? So we're considering all venues.
Yeah, I mean, barring a sudden infusion of people, I think we really need to merge editorial across the 2 blogs, because right now we have 2 editors for the contributor blog and 2 editors for the main blog, and it's just not enough in either case. Whereas having 4 editors for 1 blog is actually much more sustainable.
Do we have 2 editors for the contributor site blog?
Yeah, me and Tim.
You and Tim? But Tim is
Yeah.
also the editor of the other blog, so that doesn't make 4, does it?
No.
Makes 3.
Yeah,
And it's not like you need more work.
we have 2 other people for the main blog, but
Okay.
there's a total of 4 people in the pool.
Okay.
And it's just not, and particularly right now, the process of sort of dual listing blog posts of a blog post going both to the contributor blog and to the main blog is painfully manual. is like
Yes.
literally almost twice as much effort to publish it in both places.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we just can't keep doing this.
Yep.
Some of those
So we
spotlights
gotta do
end up getting
something.
held up for literally months after the writing is done, right?
Yeah, just on review processes.
Yeah.
Final review processes, not even just like all the
someday we
review.
also someday we also need to fix the publication date problem, but
Yeah.
Oh, I talked about that last week, I think, and that's
Yeah.
not trivial.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I don't have a solution to offer. But it is a genuine problem that adds significantly to final publication effort.
Yeah. If we were to reduce the amount that we are posting on both and post more on the contributor site, then I think part of that plan would be incorporating blog review training and expectations into our blogging shadows. Since we have more, the comms team supposedly at least has more ownership of the contributor site, I would feel more comfortable training our folks to do that blogging work at least first, maybe as a stepping stone to Doc's blog. I don't know. There needs to be a pathway to blog reviewing and ownership in here better than there is currently for both blogs or whatever blog we end up with.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is, what's the value in having two separate blogs?
Yeah.
So originally, .dev was for informing contributors, maintainers, that kind of thing. .io was for, in our view, comms view, for public-facing end-user things. Could they be merged into one? Yes, but as you mentioned, there's various challenges with that. And I think,
There's also occasional projects that make more sense on one than the other.
yes, I think at this point, we're dealing with maybe structural or procedural issues for the .io blog. I understand the need for high quality blogs, but some have slipped past us in the past, and everything's worked out okay afterwards. So anything we can do to help docs speed
Yeah.
up, I think, should be something we focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you look at the Kubernetes IO blog right now, how much actual end user content is there?
Yeah, that's
So-
very true.
That's a
And-
great question.
Basically, the only end user content I can find there on the first page is the release announcements, which are also of interest to our contributors. So
Yes.
the Tim's suggestion was that we have one blog and we move to a tag system.
Which I think is a very reasonable idea. Yeah, we should have tags, and if only we had a list of SIGs that we could use for tags. Oh wait, we do. So yeah, the tag thing I think would help more. My concern is around working on the dev site is easy.
Yeah.
Working on the .io site is really freaking hard.
Yeah. Another thing to add into this, and we should probably move on at some point,
Mhm.
is when I brought this up with the other SIG ContribEx co-chairs and tech leads, a point of discussion was, the contributor site was made for a purpose, and I argued that a lot of people don't know the contributor site exists.
Mhm.
An uncomfortable number of people don't know that it exists, and that was a point of debate among us, was do people actually pay attention to the contributor site, or at least the blog, which we don't
Do
really
we
have any
have-
data on, but
Yeah, we don't have any web analytics for Kubernetes set dev.
not that I know of.
I can look real quick. Hang on.
We might want to
I don't
see
think
if we
we
can
do.
find some.
If we do, it's not exposed to us. That's for sure.
Another point to consider.
I do remember pushing some changes like a year ago to fix the whole Google Analytics,
Oh,
V4 update thing.
yes. Yeah. So
so
there's G tags in here.
theoretically, there should be some analytics somewhere. I don't have access to them. I wonder who does.
Yeah. There should be as I'm looking at the source code because
Yeah.
there's Google Tag Managers in here, analytics, although
Yeah. Because it would be good double checking, because what I hear anecdotally is one of the other issues for example, one of the arguments in favor of merging the blogs is that people don't actually read the contributor blog on its own, because they don't find it, right?
Yeah, I was gonna state that we just guess to refresh our access for analytics, and Arnaud was the one who granted them. So I don't know if he has the same rights to .dev, but he certainly does for .io.
Looking at the source code of .dev, it might not be configured correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, the config for account ID is a bunch of zeros. So
Another consideration is that .dev, or the contributor site, is in general understaffed and understood, not well understood. When I brought it up with the other SIG leads, they were also surprised to learn that that is within our SIG's purview.
Yeah. The yeah, and that's, I guess, why it's been the same couple of people for a while.
Yeah.
To be
We kept
fair,
thinking we'd fix that.
aside from the blog, there's very little activity on .dev.
yes.
I mean, I would say outside of the blog, the activity in .dev is 90% contributor summit updates, and that's not a thing anymore, since there's no more contributor summit. So,
Yeah.
the so I'm less worried about that from that perspective, but there has also been talk about partly because of the whole .io TLD situation,
Right.
Yeah.
merging the .dev content into the main website.
Indeed. At this point, I think we've had a pretty good discussion, covered a lot of the good points. I think we're leaning in a certain direction, and that we should probably move on in our agenda. Any last comments about that before we move on in the agenda? We can always come back to it at the end if we have time. Alrighty, we will continue to discuss that in the comms meeting and keep this group updated as best we can. Moderation and media. Any updates there on Zoom, Slack, YouTube? For Zoom, I can kind of give an update there. There was a discussion recently about creating some new Zoom admins. I haven't done that yet, but I still want to. We had an offer for someone who is very experienced to become a Zoom admin again. We could really use the help. I have kind of gotten the overview of how Zoom works, and myself and the other SIG leads keep saying that we'll do kind of a knowledge transfer session where I teach the others how to do Zoom, and it hasn't happened. So having some more Zoom admins outside of the group of SIG leads would be nice. So I will try to get that set up. We do have a volunteer. YouTube, we also introduced a new admin last week, 2 weeks ago. We got him permissions. He also runs YouTube administration for some other channels outside of the Kubernetes community. So Arpit, welcome as a YouTube admin. We're excited to have him on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Slack, the problem child of moderation and media.
Jeez.
I think there was a need for more Slack moderators.
Yeah, we should probably go on a recruitment drive. The honestly, the big round to it issue for that is that we haven't had very strong guidance on how you should do Slack moderation. mostly because the pool of active Slack moderators are all people who've been with the Kubernetes project for 5 years or more. And if we're going to recruit new people, then we really need to have better guidelines. And that's what's been holding that up. And to be fair, by the way, this is not a volume thing, but a coverage thing. As in, the volume of Slack moderation is not really a problem. But coverage, particularly during, say, KubeCons, can be an issue where Slack reports just don't get addressed for a couple of days, which is obviously a problem if somebody's spamming or whatever. Yeah, I mean, basically we need a whole role handbook for Slack moderators, and we don't currently have one. Because there's a lot of things that are sort of exist as precedents that we set in the Slack private admins channel, but at this point you'd have to do a heck of a lot of scrolling to find them.
Yeah, I'm feeling a trend in our meeting today. We have a lot of not flashy chop wood, carry water type roles that we really need folks to jump in with both feet on, and it's difficult to get folks to do that, especially on a long-term basis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, because the thing is, like everything else, right? If we had the handbooks, then we have potential recruitment pools. Because, like, for example, tossing it out to everybody who ran for Code of Conduct Committee would be a good start. As well as, this is another thing that, say, some of our comms volunteers who are non-coders would be eligible for, right? Because, like I said, the volume isn't high. Believe it or not, most of our people are pretty well behaved, despite having that. I will remark that just to put a pin in something that's a frozen issue, is that we still have no solution for. Oh, yeah, actually, so this is a separate point. So, hold up there is handbook. If I would like to say if we've got a comms volunteer or somebody who wants to help work in the handbook, but the truth is that wouldn't really help. It wouldn't take me less time to supply information and edit than it would take me to just write the thing. And I don't know who else would write it, right?
Yeah.
Me and Bob and I'm blanking on who our third most active moderator is, but we basically have 3 moderators who would I think be able to write a handbook, and all 3 of us are, like usual, people who have 15 other responsibilities. So so second issue for Slack moderation. One thing we discovered recently is that there is an unwritten limit in the total number of people that you can have in an individual Slack channel, which is about 200,000.
Yeah.
That is, as far as I'm concerned, a completely reasonable limit. Nobody has petitioned Slack to expand it, and if I project myself into the role of being Slack tech support, my answer would be no. But the problem, the holdup there is, I would say, out of the roughly 200,000 people we have in Kubernetes users, I would guess that probably 100 to 150,000 people are inactive. The problem is that Slack does not equip us with any tools to automatically expire inactive members, or for that matter, any tools that allow us to simply batch expire members at all. Like, the only built-in Slack tools are expiring members one at a time, and each expiration takes 3 individual clicks.
Wow.
So we opened up an issue a few months ago to see if anybody wanted to attempt creating a tool based on undocumented Slack APIs, because there are no documented APIs for this. We even have some rough stuff that was written by Catherine and by one other person back in the day. It's never been used. Would need significant debugging, and of course, the fun about that is that we have no way to test it except in production. So just the ContribEx is aware that's all basically stuck. We don't have anybody who has both the time and the technical knowledge to work on that. Because it obviously needs to be somebody who's dealt with Slack API, or at least, is, a programmer who has dealt with other poorly documented APIs. Don't have anybody. We had a couple people raise their hands, but they clearly did not have much production experience. This is a little bit too high risk. Because that's the thing, because like we have whatever it is, 230,000 users on Slack, of which I would estimate between probably somewhere around 2/3 are no longer active, and could stand to be purged, but we don't have any way to do so.
Rather than it might be too risky as we're directly doing it. That is part of it, but it's high risk and thus needs high expertise.
Right. Well, it's not
Right.
something that we can give a student intern, in other words.
No.
Yeah.
Right? Because it really, needs to be somebody who has had a little experience dealing with, things where if you mess up, it's downtime for everyone. Unless somebody can come up with a really creative way to test this on a test Slack instance. I haven't been able to think of one. Because the problem is that we want to purge people by the last date of activity, and we don't have any way to seed a Slack by backdating people's activity.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So yeah, and the problem is that because people are like, oh, you should harangue the Slack people and stuff, and I don't think people understand that our Slack is free of charge, and it's very much best effort. And Slack doesn't particularly care what our needs are because we don't fit the profile of their typical customer.
No.
So.
But we're big enough that we can take the whole thing down.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually,
and we have.
No, actually, the Slack outage was unrelated, or the relationship was that I was going to do the call. So we bought ourselves some time in Kubernetes users by just doing the call. I did a channel to notify everybody and said, hey, if this is the first time you've looked at this channel in 6 months, then maybe leave it. And that bought us a few thousand users worth of space for people to join. But at join rates, that's not going to last very long. And of course, the people who left are not the completely inactive users, because those people are not even seeing their notifications.
Right.
Yep.
So,
maybe someday.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I can think of other workarounds, such as, for example, creating a new Kubernetes users channel, telling people that if they care about Kubernetes users traffic, they have to join the new channel, and then terminating the old channel. but that has its problems. It's just that it's something we can do with the available tooling.
Do we know how people get to our Slack? I know there's a few links around the web, but is this channel part of what normally gets added when you join? Maybe we add the second channel to that.
Um,
Oh.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that would be
I don't know how
that
the
would be
Slack
something,
invites work.
right?
Yeah.
That would be something that we do, right? As we switch all the promotions over to the new
Mhm.
channel, etc. Right? Um, the that said, it's not. Let me see if I think we have other channels. So here's the weird thing about it, right? We've reached a cap with Kubernetes users,
Mhm.
but for some reason that cap doesn't apply to channels on which regular users can't post because announcements has 210
Oh.
and
Interesting.
nobody's been getting denied access to that. And that's what I said about it being an undocumented limit.
Yeah.
So I mean, all of that aside, everything else, we really would like to purge our inactive users, right? There's no reason to have 100,000 inactive accounts hanging around, and those are just waiting for some spammer to co-opt somebody's login,
Hmm.
which happens from time to time. The
Mhm.
so um,
Yeah. It does seem like something that maybe we should bring up for Slack, because if they have any other Slacks that get up to our levels, then other folks will need those tools. So they might want to put it on their
yeah,
to-do list.
yeah. If I could figure out who this is,
Yeah.
I would have the folks in IBM bug them because I know that IBM has some Slacks that are
Yeah.
also, at similar limits. And I'm pretty sure that IBM's HR, for example, would love to have a batch delete tool.
Interesting.
But the problem is I can't figure out who at IBM who's actually responsible for the Slack.
Well,
Try.
yeah. Oof.
Maybe we should ping in Kubernetes users and say, hey, is there anyone in here who works at Slack?
Yeah.
We could
yeah.
use your help.
Yeah.
If only we had a thing like social media.
That's true. We could. Social medias.
Yeah, I know.
Meh.
It's going to be interesting if we try that. But yeah, it seems like Slack can't accommodate us and we need to recruit
Yeah.
someone who can.
However, there's something for a new contributor orientation next week, because we don't have to assume that new contributors are new to programming, because they aren't necessarily. And put that in as one of the tasks where we could use a new person, right? Because
Mhm.
we basically need somebody. I mean, ideally, we would want somebody who can write this in Go so that it could be the foundation of a future periodic batch delete job. But frankly, if somebody wants to code something on a one-time basis in JavaScript and it works, I'll take it.
I can do that. I'll add it to the deck for this month. Cool. I can add that, and we have 11 minutes left. I think we've gone over that pretty well. Any last questions, comments on Slack moderation and the joy that that is before we move on to our next item? Moving on to GitHub management. Any updates in GitHub management from anyone here? I don't think I particularly have anything. I know when I discussed the whole blog merge idea with the other leads, we did put in a PR to actually add the SIG leads as owners on the contributor site. So that was something. That's kind of like GitHub management. Aside from that, I don't think I have anything.
Yeah, nobody from the main GitHub management team is here. So
Indeed. Check out the APAC meeting maybe for any updates on that. I don't see any anyway, so.
No.
So I think we are moving on. And the last item is elections.
yeah, well, I feel like this shouldn't become a standing item until May, because
It is a
aside from my
sub-project.
ongoing work on improving test coverage for elections, mainly in hope of being able to fix a couple of longstanding issues, primarily the case sensitivity issue, is ongoing.
You're able to actually work on that right now?
Sporadically, it actually helps that my employer has released some new Kubernetes development tools, and so I can actually use this as a demo for them. So
Nice.
it makes it easier for me to find time to actually build that up. But we'll continue. I've had one contributor helping with writing tests, etc. I wouldn't mind the second one, so you could put that back into the rotation for new contributor orientation.
It's already in the
because
deck.
this is a task, right? Because somebody who has experience with Python testing, basically.
We'll continue to include in new contributor orientation. Also,
yeah, right
it's
now I'm
looking like
working
I
from the
will-
other end, like creating a dummy OAuth source so that we actually can run automated tests with authentication, which currently we can't.
Also, I realized that I'm probably going to miss the beginning of the new contributor orientation session that I would normally be at, but we have someone else to run it this time, so not too worried. But if one of you all can be on to be backup for them, I already ran through the whole thing with them. They seem good to go, but
When is that?
just in case. It is March 18th, next Tuesday.
Aha.
At
Okay. Yeah, it's in my
8:30
calendar.
Pacific.
Yeah. I got it. I'll be there.
Cool. And then an idea that just occurred to me for open mic discussion, I suppose. Should new contributor orientation be a new sub-project of SIG ContribEx? It's kind of its own project, and it has its own handbooks.
Sure. And
Yeah.
and that way we can actually put out a, hey, do you want to lead this sub project?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Mario and I could be the sub-project leads for now. And we can focus on making sure that there are new folks learning to run it. And then we can have a pool of folks who can run it. We've already got 2 more. We've got 4 hosts right now who either
Yeah.
have run it before or are about to run it. And I've got at least 1 or 2 other folks who have mentioned interest in running it. And I was hoping to kind of start up a cohort of folks learning to run new contributor orientation. So it's kind of its own sub-project, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll bring that up with the other SIG chairs.
Might as well.
Any other items for open mic or discussion today? We have 6 minutes left. What is this luxurious time?
What?
How does that work?
How? Where?
That doesn't happen in comms.
No, because we talk about things like social media
Blogs.
and blogs. Yes.
But any other items for this meeting? Anything folks want to discuss? Anything folks want to come back to? Any questions on folks' mind about things that are happening in the contributor community? I think we covered a lot today. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. And I think with that, we will close up and say goodbye to our friends on YouTube then. I'll turn off the recording. If folks want to hang out for 5 minutes, you're welcome to. Goodbye, YouTube.